Wonderful. Welcome to this workshop and conference on augmented reality. Would you prefer me to run the conference in Spanish or in Catalan? No problem. It's in Spanish, so the PowerPoint is in Spanish, so you will have a little bit of everything. My conference is going to be divided into two parts. In the first one, we will refer to augmented reality applied to mobile technologies, and we will talk about the APIs currently existing and which can be developed, which can be used to develop. We will see some examples because many things have been done. We will show you some of the things we've done as well, and we will tell you about what where this technology is heading and what the future holds. Actually, a future that is quite close to us at the moment. We are from a company called Parentia. My name is Álvaro Ulldemolins. I'll give you my visiting card at the end. And we are developing in three different areas. First of all, augmented reality and also virtual reality. Regarding augmented reality, we have two big areas. The part that is geared at mobile technologies, another part for events, and what we also call virtual reality immersive. We're not going to talk about virtual reality this time, but we will basically work on augmented reality, especially for mobiles. We have a number of corporations that we work with. They're very happy, and everyone lived happily ever after. Let's not go into the details about that. But let's summarize a bit what augmented reality means from our point of view. I know that all this week you've been hearing workshops, and you've been hearing things, and you've been told what these things are for and how it's used, but it's important to clarify the concept so that we have a common language. What is augmented reality for us? First of all, a marker. A marker is an image which is recognized through a device. It could be a printed image, or when you acquire it with your device, then that's a marker already. For instance, if you take a picture on your mobile phone of La Sagrada Familia, that would be a marker already. It doesn't necessarily have to be a printed piece of paper. Then we also have the computer vision part. The computer is is understanding what it's seeing. This is the part of intelligence that we need for the app. Then we also have the 3D part. Many apps and many contents done in augmented reality are done in 3D. That means that we add a contents part. It could be 3D, but not necessarily. And then we also have the real-time interaction. That means that when I move around with my device, with my camera, whatsoever, the object or the content will react and will be visualized depending on where and how I'm moving. If we wrap this all up with a mobile handset and with an application, then this is what we would call AR mobile apps. These are the two concepts that we'll be handling. What was done so far and what is being done at the moment? So far, markers, i.e. this image, this object which is recognized, were specific markers. They were similar to QR codes. Not exactly the same, but quite similar. And webcams were used to capture them because they didn't have any because mobile devices were not widely available, and the calculation costs were rather high because algorithms required a lot of calculating power, and machines didn't have it. What has happened? That was in the past. What happened? What has happened? And what's happening now? We can use any image as a marker. We can use anything, and our visiting card, an image that we can take a picture of, such as La Sagrada Familia building. Because what we do is to train that image and deliver it so that it can be recognized from a mobile device. We now don't use any big computers with huge processing power. Current devices with their hardware allow for these technologies to work already. Besides the hardware, the software, which is used to recognize the patterns and the software and so on, have evolved as well. And now you can do all these things from a mobile device. And finally, something that is beginning at the moment is the physical interaction with elements. So, not when I'm focusing my handset on the image, then I can touch the image and something will happen. No, you can also touch the marker. If you touch the marker, through a number of contents, you will see the appearance of a number of things. Here I have this image with flowers, and I'm touching the color of the flower in the marker, not in the device, and the content will change colors immediately. This is still causing a number of problems because of lighting issues and so on, but this is the beginning already to be developed. In which sectors is this applied? Well, it's an issue of imagination. It's a matter of imagination. You will see how these things can be applied. I'm sure that you will come up with new ideas. It can be used for handbooks, and I'm sure that you will hear many different sectors. You will have heard about many different sectors, but for instance, you can have, I don't know, IKEA's catalog, and instead of having the objects printed there, if you focus with your device, then you would see the objects in 3D, and you would have the assembly instructions. Food. The boxes. The boxes of your sweets, such as Dunkin' Donuts, can offer you an augmented reality experience, and that object could come up in 3D. This is what technology provides. Then we, of course, need the imagination and how to create the whole marketing campaign for this. The industry is developing these technologies for the pre-viewing of objects on real size, to place them in the place where they will be located. We will do this in the workshop later. Imagine you can read this in 3D, and you would see how the different types of plugs, for instance, would look on your wall, and whether the sockets and switches would fit in with your decoration. And this will be real size samples. You will see what it looks like in your home. That's one of the advantages of technology. You will not see a rendering in a small, for instance, printed catalog. Culture. All these thousands of visits, you go anywhere and you aim your phone to a marker, and you will see the recreation in video of the old content or the old, for instance, ruins, or an interactive show that will show whatever. For museums, you point at a marker with a set of people there, and you will have an interactive game that will provide an interactive experience to visitors of that museum. For architecture, for instance, same thing goes. It's always the same concept. You use the plans as markers, and you would see the 3D of that house or of that building, the 3D appearance. But we can add layers. Imagine you want to see that with furniture, without furniture. Imagine you want to see just floor 1, floor 2, you name it. For advertising, the markers that you would have, This is another sector that is very popular. You aim the device and you will see the object that you're being offered on the catalog, but on 3D. I remember pointing at, I think it was camper boots, where you would focus with the device and you would see the boot. They explained the new technology used there. They filter water. Water doesn't come in, and then you see how they step on a water pool and so on and so forth. Maybe this is going to be our day-to-day activity, and you will see that as a standard when we all wear our Google glasses. But so far, this is still quite catchy. That's why so many people are investing so much in this type of technologies. Who's setting the pace in this field? At the moment, there are 15 hardware manufacturers. These are manufacturers supporting these technologies. Don't be fooled. The phone that you're given for free when you join Movistar for 50 euros is not the same as a 200 or 300 euros phone where you can do, for instance, real-time tracking of an object and where you can click and get a 3D shape. In a 50 euro phone, it will be really hard to do that. And if you manage to do it, your user experience is going to be very poor. There are over 50 companies using AR on a day-to-day basis. For instance, Volkswagen, the car manufacturer, has got an augmented reality project where imagine they have a car model. It's made out of a sort of a silicon, and you focus the car and you see the finishings that all their designers are doing. It's not the same to see that on a screen than to see that applied to the car with the soft curves and finishes and so on. For journalists, there are many journalists who are doing these things. You see that on films, but this is the trend. Over 200 researchers in this type of technologies. Over 500 agencies promoting brands through AR, over 2,000 brands and publicity experts using AR, and especially over 1 million AR developers, i.e. people who are developing this type of technologies, and the figure is on the rise because technology is going to evolve. And what's even most important, this would make no sense if this value were not big. This is 50 million plus consumers using this technology. What does this mean? It means this market is booming. But how does this technology combine? Now it's very clear. We've already defined what augmented reality is and what it's used for. But how is this done? How is this technology done? We have 3 different groups, 3 different technology areas where we can see the different options through which we can approach this technology. First of all, we have the area of detection, object detection, then object tracking, and then the rendering or painting. So the first thing that that you need to do is to identify the marker, to detect it. You aim your mobile device to the marker, and then it is detected. How is that done? We have 2 ways, either client-based or server-based. If it's client-based, it means that you will capture the image you want to detect, and the recognition of that image is going to be sent to a server on the cloud, that famous cloud that is so fashionable at the moment, but that no one knows exactly what it does. Well, that's where it's sent. It there uses a huge database where that image is compared through a number of features extracted from it, and then it gives back an ID. What comes back from the cloud is an answer or an ID, depending on the type of app you're using. But basically, this image detection is not done in the device, but rather at the server. When is that used? Well, when you have so many images that you want to identify. It's not the same to have a catalog with 10 products or 50 products on a catalog, or having a database of 2,000, 10,000 images that you need to search. You can't store all the parameters of all the images of the world in your device because it has a limited memory. So the cloud or the server has this unlimited capacity. You add computers and you just add them. If the software and the hardware is good, then you will get a good answer. This would be one approach, and this is the main focus of technology at the moment. It's basically the trend being followed. We understand that there are so many images that could or should be identified that unless it is for some very specific cases, for instance, a company having a very limited catalog of 10 products and they want to do an app, an AR app to show that catalog, then you don't need that type of approach, and we can use a different one that we will see later on. But large corporations developing this type of software are going in this direction. Why? Because it's easier for them and because it's cheaper. If everything is on your client side, they can't charge you for this service. They will be able to maybe charge you for using their API or their technology, but in order to charge their service recognition, then they can't charge you. So what are they doing? They give you a part of software free, but then the identification is charged for. It's very cheap, just a few cents per identification, but if you multiply that by the potential audience, then it's an awful lot of money. Then we also have the client part, the client-based approach. We have different approaches here. We can do things via ID, i.e. the market would have a specific ID with a number of features. We can also learn objects on the fly with a technology they call SLAM, which means simultaneous location and mapping. And we can also do that through QR codes. One example of ID marker detection, when I give you my cards later, would be this. You've got a marker or a set of markers, and this little frame will give us a combination of black and white, which expresses an ID, and you can associate this ID to a given content, and when you aim your device to that card, if it identifies that ID, it will show that content. It's as easy as that. Besides, the SLAM bit is the images bit, let's call it that way, showing your computer or teaching your computer to identify a given image, for instance, a card or a picture, so that the image is recognized. This has some pros and cons. The pros of this technology is, which is ID-based, is that you see something and intrinsically you're being told that is useful for something, because you see there, well, these are codes, this is a QR, what does this mean? In the images part, that's not the case. If you don't add a little bit of text or something, you're not being told that that's a marker that you can use for augmented reality, so you need to add something to it, to the image. Pros and cons. Well, it will depend on the technology or the project. You would choose one approach or the other. QR code based. Then you would have the typical QR code. Instead of using the ID approach, you would use this QR code, which is based on black and white boxes. The same thing goes for barcode detection. You detect them, and then you can show a given content, link up to a website, and so on. The minimum version of barcode association is what you see in the supermarket. You take the rice package and then they click and read the barcode. That's very minimal. And you're doing that with a laser pointer, or a laser reader, but that would be an example of detection, a basic example of detection. LLA marker. LLA means longitude, latitude, and altitude. When you're with your in some given coordinates of the world with your device, then from there you will be able to see a given content. If you are located in the Sagrada Familia, besides identifying the Sagrada Familia, that content could only appear when the GPS is sending you the signal that you are at that given spot. So if you have a picture of La Sagrada Familia, because this is just an image, and if I focus there, you would not have access to living the AR experience of La Sagrada Familia, which does exist. This can be used. Would this be interesting as a product? I'm not sure. If you create an app which can exclusively be used while you are at La Sagrada Familia, well, my initial thoughts would be that you are losing potential clients that could use that when they're not at La Sagrada Familia. And then face detection technologies. What we've seen, you aim at a person's face with a device, and then you see the appearance of 3D contents to make, for instance, a clown mask, or make their eyes bigger, and so on and so forth. This is the detection part. What do we need to do after we've detected the object? Then we need to track it. For tracking, the approach is quite similar to what was seen for detection. What can you do? You can follow it up, you can track it through IDs. If you move the card and you move the device, then you are tracking it. The content will continue to be visualized there. Then you can also do the tracking through 3D objects. Tracking can be done through images as well, through magazines and journals, as we said. Through your GPS, if you move, if you've calculated, if you've programmed that in that device during that route, you should be seeing certain contents in different locations, well, then that would appear. Then it can also learn objects on the fly. For instance, if I'm here, I see a marker, it shows one content. If I turn around and see another marker, then it would show a different content. You can do that through gyroscopes or GPS, or through face tracking. If you move, then the content would follow you. And the third pillar we have is the rendering. We've already detected the object, we're tracking it, and now we need to render the content. We need to paint it somehow. How can we do that? We can do that through video, the video layer that is in the background, because in the end you're capturing a video mesh, or we can do that in 3D. You are capturing an object and something can come up. We can show that through our glasses, for instance, through Google Glasses. We can also show an engine such as Unity 3D, which is what we will practice with later. We can also use HTML5 technologies. That will be a little bit slower, all with its pros and cons, but it can also be used via web. You can also have your own engine, and we can also use different events where you can press and things would happen. This would be another layer in the rendering stage. This would be the three main chapters where you would have to choose, where you would have to make choices when you want to develop a project, because you would have to choose specifically for each project. It's not only I have the image, then the device is aimed at it, and then content appears. No, we have many other possibilities. We have many other possibilities and features, for instance, using face detection, using your GPS, and so on and so forth. APIs which are being developed. How can all of this be done? There are many more. There are many, many more. It's endless, because every day I'm working on this, and every day I see things being developed. But the biggest ones, the most powerful ones, at least from my humble point of view, and I might be wrong, are these ones. Let's see the features that they have in order to understand what kind of approach you could use in order to approach a given product.
Marca referencia.
We've got the reference marker in this type of field. I mean, the benchmark, the most important API is Metaio. They really focus on AR. They were one of the first ones. They provide with software for all types of platforms. And here I've included the 5 characteristics that, in my view, any API should have to carry out a specific development. It should support iOS and Android. Both need to be supported, and Metaio includes these. It has to have hybrid integration, like an approach to Unity, so Metaio has that too. It must be able to create markers, be it offline, through a program you run the image through and it gets you the characteristics, or online. It must be free. That's quite important, especially when you are developing, because other things are very expensive, and that it can support any type of content, 3D, as we said before, but so that you can also include video or flat images or other content you can think of. So Metaio really meets all these requirements except for the free one, and licenses are not only expensive but extremely expensive, in my opinion. But, well, the technical support is great. They are pioneers, and they are already developing software to carry out 3D tracking without markers, marker-free 3D tracking. So through different algorithms, it recognizes the shape of the object, it creates the interaction plans, and you can superimpose the content. Did you understand that? If you don't really understand some of the things I am mentioning here in my presentation, please raise your hand and let me know. We've got Orasma in the second place. Orasma is a company which is quite new, quite recent. Well, I'll tell you about the characteristics and then I move on to its history. It supports iOS and Android. It does not offer an integration with Unity or any other platform. It's always native code. You can easily create markers. Is it free? Yes and no. I mean, partially free. What does this mean? You've got some features for free, some splashes, some screens at the beginning, and it makes you use its own icons. Otherwise you have to pay for quite costly licenses, and you can also include 3D and video content. What is the strength of Orasma? That it is really easy to create content. If you want to keep things easy and you want to carry out your project, it's really easy to create content with Orasma. Not long ago, Telefónica paid about, I don't know, I can't remember, but about 547 million euro. Maybe I'm overdoing it, but I think, well, it was a lot of money. So that Aurasma would be their technological partner in terms of AR. So all the advertising by Telefonica regarding concerts, billboards, etc., well, they are done by a content manager, which belongs to, well, is done by Aurasma, and at some point in the future you will aim your telephone at the billboard and you will get an AR content. So Aurasma is Telefonica's technological partner, and Aurasma was fantastic in this negotiation. Obviously the price was a little bit overdone. Buforia, the third one, it also supports iOS and Android, it supports Unity. You can also create markers. It's free, which is very important in this case. And you can also include any type of content, be it 3D content or video content. As you will see later in the hands-on workshop, these would be our case. We will use Buforia to develop our example later on. Behind Buforia we find Qualcomm, which is the developer of the Cecil Dragon chips for the Android, and many IT manufacturers and telephony manufacturers use their services. So there is a certain symbiosis between the chip developers and the regulated technology developers. So great support behind Buforia. One of the main handicaps of this technology is that it uses a lot of hardware. Of course, current telephones or devices are very powerful, but if you have a 50-euro device that was offered to you by the telephonic company, well, probably you won't be able to run the app, and probably the user experience will be quite poor. String is the next one. It's another API. They are a little bit free-falling. They had their heyday. They were the first one to create the API for iOS some time ago, but currently, well, they are not doing that well. People didn't like it, so its use is not very widespread. It only supports iOS. It does not offer any support for Android, as far as I know. It also supports Unity. You can create markers online. It's not free. You have to pay for the license. And the content you can use, as far as I know, is only 3D, no video allowed. It has no codes for video content. Total immersion. This one is another company. This is above the average. It is a little bit more used than String, but less than Buforia or Metaio. It supports both platforms, also Unity. You can create markers, but it's not free either. And the content you can include, well, recently they have allowed for video content to be included, so this is wrong on the slide. It supports both 3D and video. What is the advantage of total immersion? If we take into account these features, we don't see any difference with the others, but through their API you can directly compile mobile technology and also a standalone project. So you can run the project on the desktop. So basically we are looking into the characteristics for development as regards mobile technology, and of course in this case Buforia is king. But if you want to create a project so that you can run it on your computer with your computer camera, Buforia lacks the rights to create a .exe so that you can run it on your computer. I will tell you more about it later in the hands-on seminar. But, well, in principle, Buforia has no license for that, and you can only execute Buforia on mobile apps. And finally, our AR Toolworks. I think this was the first one, probably. It's pretty much associated with the Washington University. That's where they started to develop the first APIs with the AR Toolkit. Very well known, and then it evolved to Flash Toolkit. They have all types of versions, Unity Toolkit, all types of different toolkits, and they set up this AR Toolworks company. They support both iOS and Android, also Unity with different platforms. You can easily create markers. It is more or less free, depending on the license you want to use, whether you want to go for flat content or web-based content. And regarding the video, well, they support video content, but not very much so far. We have tried out all of them. It's our job to do that. So personally, I would recommend Buforia if the project or the product you aim to create needs to be very quickly developed. You can use a hybrid approach with a Unity engine type. But if you have to be very detailed and you need very special characteristics to be included in your project or product, because you're being asked to do that by the customer, I would go for a native approach and apply code. It's the only way out. Leia is more, is very helpful in terms of content management. In Leia, you create your own channel, you include but you always have to download the app. It's only the same app. I don't know, have you worked with it? It also has an API, true. But it's true that you can include a lot of content. It can be dynamic, but at least in my own experience, you have to use its own app. You cannot say, well, I want to have my own, I want to create my own app with my own design and image. The rest of these APIs allow you to do that. Some offer you splash screens or icons that need to be necessarily included, but, well, they have a lot of ease of use and ease of content inclusion. If you really want to start from scratch and you're not very knowledgeable about programming, well, if you know something about Java, programming on Android should be easier for you. If you have never programmed before, programming on iOS is really hell. And I do it. I have first-hand experience in this regard. Any question regarding these APIs, integrations? No?
No, estic accento. Depenent. Després veurem.
It really depends. In terms of Vuforia, which is one of the APIs that we most use. Can you hear me okay at the back? If you don't have to recognize a lot of content, 2, 3, up to 10 markers, it uses the customer or the client approach. because there's not much content to be recognized. If we're talking about huge content and you say, okay, I want to recognize 3,000 patterns and allocate the content to each of them, well, then you have to go for a cloud approach. I've not included it here, but Vuforia has a cloud approach. We will not look into it because that was not the goal of this workshop, but I'll mention it anyway. The cloud approach of Vuforia means that if you pay, I don't know, X cents, so you tell the API how many images you want it to recognize, and it is not done on the device, but in the cloud. I think that the first 1,000 are for free for developers, for them to try, and from the 1,000 on, you have to pay for it. But depending on the project, depending on the company, on the profile, you can easily carry out a first approach for free, and then you tell your customer, look, you can try it, it works. And if the customer has already results and you see that visits are going up, I'm sure that the customer will be willing to pay the little fee that you have to pay to be able to include more content. There's another advantage to that, and that is that if you want to update a marker, if you do it through a client approach, you will have to include the marker, recompile the app and deploy it to the market or distribute it if it's an enterprise case. If you go for a cloud approach or cloud site, well, everything ends up in the cloud and everything runs on its own. It really depends on the project in these cases.
No, no és que siguin empreses. Normalment...
Companies. Usually it's the same company which provides you with the software to develop the app or the project. They provide you with that service because they know their API very well, and you're offered a couple of buttons, a couple of services. You drag here, drop there, and it's done. And usually this is web-based. So this is a service through which they achieve a better return on investment.
No hi ha cap plataforma que tu puguis carregar.
You say that there is no platform from which you can download the code?
Com? Que jo sàpiga, no.
No, that's not the case. That is precisely the strength of it. Of course, there's a need to collaborate with society, but you don't have to be silly, because after all, this is a company. They will provide you with the software and all the tools. They will help you as much as possible. But once you're hooked to their services, that's where they will come with the bill. In the case of Vuforia, at the beginning, from version 0.1, they evolved, and at the beginning they only recognized frame markers. For example, with these combinations here, I will tell you about this later, and very quickly, with the SLAM technology, they realized that they could recognize patterns and they could recognize images, because this marker here is quite ugly. So these opened up a whole range of possibilities, because with these markers you can even have up to 512 combinations. You cannot do more, and if you've got 1,000 products, how do you go about it? You repeat them, you include 2 of them. So people started to ask on fora, etc., for a system to create markers, etc. And they had it clear in mind. I don't know if it was because people were asking for it, because content was growing, or rather because it was a well-set strategy. I would like to think that that was a mix of it all. The product was good, it was easy to integrate, and the next natural step was to include the service in order to get a better return on investment, because everything else is for free. I read the fora and many people are asking for it. They are asking for more support to more technologies, not only iOS and Android, but also Windows Phone. But the minute they support Windows Phone, they are already supporting desktop, because it's the same technology behind it. So probably a smart person will be able to execute the Windows Phone app on Windows. So this is a license issue, and they do not pay for the desktop execution license. So I'm talking about multi-millionaire licenses here. But I'm sure that the moment will come, because they are starting now to have return on investment, because the cloud part of it is good. It's working wonders, but for big projects.
Exactament. Llavors, clar, si a part de fer-ho bé, estàs cuidant...
Yes, and if apart from doing a good job, you pay attention to these details, well, it's a fantastic product. It's a great product. Okay, I will move on, otherwise we won't have time to cover it all. We will look now into a couple of examples. I've shown you the APIs, and I will now show you some examples of use of all this technology. So how to use it, basically. I also include a couple of event examples, AR events, because obviously with your mobile phone you can do many things, but there are a couple of campaigns I really liked regarding events. Probably you've watched them.
Aquesta campanya...
Campaign here. I don't know if you've watched it. It is by Lynx Axie. And I don't know if you remember the girls falling half naked, wearing wings from the heavens. So they launched an AR campaign with this type of girl, and the idea was that you interacted with these girls. This is a London station, and on the screen they would see the interaction with the girl. This is video. This is the girl that has been cut off, and from the same perspective that the girl was shot to keep the height, they placed a marker on the floor. It recognizes the marker, and you've got the perspective. And if the content is well fitted, you just have to run it to execute it. This is video. This is not 3D. Sometimes we don't have to complicate things. and you allow for this interaction with the angels. I think that this is amazing. This campaign is just great because it is having a continuity with all the advertising campaign they had done before, and they are adding this technological value to the campaign, and people were just blown off by it.
Vale. Això us ho ensenyo perquè
Give you this example because sometimes we get obsessed and stuck with the 3D. We want to add many things. Sometimes it's as easy as that. You have the content done because these images were already shot. You just take it, you wrap it, you include it in a big event, in a big place, and you can launch this campaign. So at the end of the day, it's not so much about the technology, it's about the idea, the content, and how to make the most of the technology to launch something that is striking. Here we've got another campaign.
aquesta és de Coca-Cola.
Coca-Cola. And I think it was done collaboratively with the BBC Museum regarding art preservation, etc. The Arctic protection. So the idea behind it was, okay, you cannot travel to the North Pole to see the bears, and so we will take them to you. So this was with a camera, and you would get this Arctic content, and you could literally interact with the bears. This is rendered 3D. It's video, but 3D. And, well, you could just guide the bears around. So the ice was breaking. And this was just a screen with a pork spine behind it, a white one to pretend it was ice and nothing else. But the experience was amazing. It really generated such content and such interaction with a place that was non-existent. And very often we only focus on the technology. We are very techie guys, but it's not about technology very often. And I find this quite a lot. People tell me, but can we do that? Does it exist? Yes, we can do it. It exists, and we can apply it to such and such project. So people who are not in the technological world, well, we still have to train them and disseminate all these ideas and explain them that all of this is possible. It's out there. I will show you a couple of examples of AR mobile apps, and then I will teach you how to run them. This is a very simple thing. This is a parquet company. And you can see how the parquet flooring will look like. You don't need any 3D here. It's a 2D idea or image, so that you can see how the flooring will look on your floor, in your place. So this type of app, for example, Bayer, the salespeople go to the pharmacies to sell things. So they've got catalogs with the exact measures and sizes of their shelves and posters. They cannot carry all of them around. So they have this AR catalog You use the catalogue as a marker. You put the marker on the table at the chemist. You take out your tablet, you aim it at the marker, and you can show the pharmacist all the sizes and the characteristics of your product. You can also include the side effects of the drugs you're trying to sell, all the content you can think of. And you can see it in real size and picture it in the place where it will be installed. We make a distinction between two approaches or products. We've got, on the one hand, the useful products, the ones that are more commercial, so to speak, and then on the other hand, we've got the entertaining products. They are not that useful. For example, if you show me how this specific switch will look like at my place, I like it. But there are other types of products like this one here that was done for a cinema chain. They used the posters of the advertisers, and we realized that many people would go with their children and the children would say, "Mom, Mom, take a picture of me." And the child would be in front of the poster and the mother would take a picture. So why not enhancing the child's experience? We used the posters, for example, in this case of Ice Age 4, and, well, the animals would come out of the poster and start working around. If you do a good job, if you offer the people to download the app and so that the children can really picture themselves playing around with the Ice Age animals, it's not only, "Mom, Mom, take the picture, please." No, it's about taking the picture, sharing it on Facebook, saying, "Look what my children are doing." So it really triggers a lot of interaction. But of course this is not, this does not have an added value, it's only entertainment. Switches. We were working with Simon AR and we wanted to so here the app would allow you to see the finishes of the switch. That's really easy. But at a cost level, of course, it's quite a different story to carry around your switches with different colors and finishes, or carrying around an iPad with this app on it and being able to show everything on your iPad. If users then go to fitting shops and, well, it's very much more difficult because you have to change the piece or the switch if it doesn't fit, etc. So this makes things much easier because people can download the app, see what it will look like in their place. So at a cost level, it is really much better.
Cola.
Another example, Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola had 3,000 million presents. I don't know if you've ever seen about this. Freaks of Coke, all these great fans who have all the merchandising items. They said that they had up to 2,500 different types of presents. Fridges, posters, I don't know, bins, and you can show pictures, but you can't go with all the materials around. If I buy 10 boxes of Coke, what are you going to give me? I'll give you a fridge. Yeah, but I'm a businessman and I have a wonderful pub and the fridge needs to be placed there. Hey, what is that going to look like? What is going to be the vinyl on it? And then you can show it. You can show it and it will look real from all angles and so on. So you're providing a number of advantages that you couldn't offer before. You couldn't show these things in the past. Another case, another example for entertainment as well. This is a campaign run for Splau. It was costly, and in the end it wasn't actually done, but that's what we proposed, and the idea, well, that's what was proposed, and the idea was that through AR you could create your own Christmas card. So you were your own. You would go in there, you placed a marker on yourself, and you chose what you wanted to be. You could be the ball, you could be the sock, you could be anywhere else, anything else. So you had this card box with all the Christmas elements. It was down on the floor, and then a jingle played, and you were just dancing on the stage. You would record that through another computer, and this was uploaded on YouTube, and that, well, generated a huge viral effect, because you were sending your Christmas card. You could send it to your friends, to your colleagues. It would attract lots of people to the mall where this was being offered, and well, it was great. However, this was finally not done. If anyone is interested in buying this idea, well, you can. We can discuss this offline at the end. It's cheap. Oracat. Oracat is a platform we've developed where you can manage your own content and catalogs, both in 3D and in 2D. You register. And you can do that through all the platforms, Max, Maya, and so on, and through the very app you can access your catalog. You can download it offline in case you want to go somewhere where there's no internet connection and you want to show your catalog, and you can include 2D or 3D catalog. You can link this up to the website through QR codes, so that if in the website you have a QR code like this, you would focus on this, and then it would launch the product. It works with iPhone, with iOS, and it's fully free, and anyone can use it without any kind of a problem. Okay. Before we continue with the future part, I will show you how this technology works.
Engegat? Sí. Vale. Per exemple, el que us comentava de l'exemple de Simón, ¿vale? Tu tens la tarja, amb la tarja.
I told you about the example of the switches manufacturer. Here you have the card. I can do the tracking, and I can look at this switch from any perspective, right? The idea is that this would have a Velcro in the back. It could be stuck to the wall, and then you could see that in real time, on real size. Sorry. But if I with my finger, I can change the different colors and finishes of the same object, and we would see that on the screen. This is the example we will see later on the workshop. But one more thing, just changing the product of a system, changing the finishing, it generates an augmented reality content, so it's rather valuable. Another example of an app. This is an example we did for a company called Aquology. It's a consultancy company. They work for the water company of Barcelona, and they sell products such as maintenance of water treatment plants and things of that sort. They have a catalog like this, and well, selling wastewater treatment systems is complex. If you use a normal catalog, that's even more difficult. So they wanted to add a technology feature to their sales process. What did they propose. We made a proposal, content, where you could see the different features, and then you would have different data sheets, and then you also had the virtual room. You had markers on the catalogs, and there you could see, for instance, the water treatment plant as it was, scale it up, scale it down, turn it around, and see this through 3D systems. And it was not only 3D, but you could also, for instance, use video with augmented reality, so that, for instance, you click play, and the video will start playing using augmented reality, and it explains the whole story of this content. Not everything needs to be necessarily 3D or 2D, but you can also add video here. What else can I show you? Another example that I showed about wooden floors. This was the catalog that these people had. This is the catalog of these wooden floors or parquet, and the idea was to use their own catalog to show the parquet. So you could put that on the floor. Let's see if the cable is long enough, and there you would see the wooden floor on your home. If the cable was long enough, you would be able to see this all the way to the wall, for instance, and the experience is exactly the same. With your finger you can change the finishes. You can say, okay, I wanted pine, or I want other types of wood, oak, whatever. And then you have the content going on top. Birch tree, whatever. Are we fooling the system? Are we tricking? No, we've simply placed another plane on top, and then we've added the texture of the marker on top. Why? Because what happened was that the user experience of this type of apps require lots and lots of tests, because people interact in different ways. So many people, what did they do? They said, oh yes, look at the end, let's see how you can see that on that side. Then they would lose the marker, and the content in virtual reality would be lost. Why? Because you didn't have the visual reference point of the marker. So we decided to place the marker on top in order to have the visual reference. It doesn't it's not dirty, because you can have a rough idea, a clear idea of what your apartment will look like with this parquet. But if you say you can only see this when you're focusing on the marker, if you put the parquet on top, you need a virtual reference to know where you're going. So you just put another layer on top, where you would place the marker so that you don't lose it while you're moving around. Let me show you another thing, or a cat.
Ara se suposa que ha entrat. Vale. Vale. A l'Eurecat el que tens és, si tu vas a la versió online, el que fa és...
The online version, and then you do a normal browsing. You browse normally, and here you see all the people who have their catalog made public. You can browse around the catalog, and there you can access and see the different folders that they have in their catalogs and the products they sell. You browse, It's a typical mobile device browsing style. Someone is sending promotions. That's fantastic. What else can you do? You can download the catalog, and then you can browse offline as well, so that you don't need to use the Wi-Fi all the time. So you click the icon of downloading. The icons in gray mean that I have already downloaded them, or you can turn this into favorites. And you can click them as your preferred systems, and then you would click quickly, you would find them quickly. A couple of catalogs. So what can you do there? You can use catalogs. You can see the feature of the product, the data sheet, a little picture, the fact sheet, and you can also see the augmented reality of the product, apart from seeing a video clip or a picture. Here it would upload the 3D model, and it will place it on the marker, which in this case will work on this marker. If you go to Aurica, to this company, you can download the marker in different formats and sizes, so you focus or you put it there, and you can scale it, rotate it, and show it in the place, or you can repeat it. If this had a flash, you could do that. You could rotate the axis, because you always have the rotation on your Z axis, but if you want to place the object the other way around, you would have to rotate the axis first. And now we've also included another option, which is to create the marker dynamically, i.e., instead of using this marker, if I preferred to use another type of marker, such as the catalog itself, the catalog of parquet, of the wooden floor, you just aim at it parallel, so that you can keep the perspective. You ask for the quality of the marker, whether it would be recognizable or not. If you say no, there it says no, in green it says yes, it would work, it would be recognizable. You take a picture, and then you would have the object there on top of the other marker you've created dynamically online. And in that way, you don't need to take the marker with you if you have any object which would gather the necessary features to make it recognizable. It can act as a marker. What does this mean? White wall is not recognizable. There's no information that in order to recognize. That would mean a book, a poster, something, a computer with, for instance, the logo, or something that could be recognized. These are the different apps. Let's go back to the presentation. The future. Let's go back to the PowerPoint presentation. What does the future hold? What are the main trends? I've seen what happened in the past, what can currently be done. I've shown a few applications where this technology is being used with different contents, 3D, flat images and video. But in what direction is all of this moving? It's moving in these directions, first of all. Marker-free 3D tracking, that's what I mentioned just a minute ago, i.e. recognizing objects, i.e. interaction planes, because in the end what you are doing when you recognize an image is to create a plane, give it the coordinates axis, and then from there on to create content. And when you do the follow-up, that coordinates axis should be adjusted all the time. You can do that, but without having trained the application to do so. So maybe you could aim your device to a building, have the edges identified, and on that, well, you could show an ad such as a Minority Report style. Another trend is the AR glasses. People would wear a device either here or I read an article about some manufacturers trying to make a sort of a contact lens that would have the augmented reality feature included so that you wouldn't have to wear glasses. This is almost like, I don't know, this is almost like science fiction, or even having a chip implanted on the back of your brain, but not having to use your mobile device in order to access this through AR contents. This will be reduced, and just as now you have phones which are like two rings, and one is the microphone and the other one is the speaker, we will probably end up in the same trend. The other area is content. This will not make any sense if there's no augmented content to visualize. This is what I mentioned before, that Minority Report effect. You walk around the town and on your viewer you will see warnings of contents that you will allow to be sent. Probably in the future we will have a list of features according to the telephone company, Google, Facebook, you name it, and you will allow for the reception of certain contents, and when you have contents of that type close by, then you will see that. For instance, a ticket for a concert, a promotional video clip, 3Ds of an object, or a museum, whatever. Where are we now? We are right here. We've gone from here, the industrial part, the web part, the publishing in phones, in mobile phones, smartphones, where we are now, and now we are beginning what we would call the augmented city. You have probably heard about smart cities, which are so fashionable at the moment. One of the elements of smart cities will be augmented reality. In technology terms, let's see where this is all heading. At the moment, at least, I don't know if you know about this company called PrimeSense. It developed Kinect, the DZ buffer viewer to identify your body positions and move around and so on. They have reduced this device and made it possible, or made it adapted to a handset, to a mobile handset. So far I was working with images, but if I had a sensor able to scan the scene, and if I were to have that scene in 3D, I would not be able to do that. I would not have to move around with my device in my hand, because I'm seeing things in 3D anyway already. Am I making myself understood? So what these people have done is precisely this. They manufacture the hardware, and the video clip you'll see now is from Viewphoria, which is making the software. And this allows them both to do this.
Fixeu-vos què està fent el tio.
What the guy is doing with a device, it scans the scene where he wants to play. And on top of the scene that he's scanned, he sets up the 3D with augmented content, but this is not a plane. The guy has scanned the vase, the box, and through software he's created, he already has the cubes, the basic shapes where you will have to collide things so that the little character will not be able to move further in there. And from there on he's set up a game, and they do that with a new device. What is this? This is a Metoy Z buffer. it reads the scene, it generates a 3D model in the background, and using the Vuforia transmission, it adds the content. And this is what's coming in the future. I think that's going to be in February or March this year.
¿Perdón?
En el paquete se te incluye el sensor.
No, no. Esto es la tecnología del software.
The software technology, Prime Sense. So you still need the glasses. What will happen? Where are things going? In the end, tablets will come with a Z buffer. At the moment they don't have it because of the cost. It's not interesting and it's quite new. And it's not making 1 but 20 million. And when you ask for one, then it costs a certain amount of money. If you ask for 20 million, the cost is different, and the Chinese will tell you it'll take a little bit longer. Yeah, but they tricked. Sorry, we don't hear the comments made without a mic. But this has been pre-calculated already, because the only thing you do this is what I said before. An image, the recognition pattern does not necessarily have to be printed. It could be that very image with that perspective. And Vuforia gives you a little bit of leeway to move around. That's what they did with the dragon. So we have two parts, the scanning and creation of the stage, where you have the boxes, and then the normal part, which is I recognize that image, which is the dragon, and there on top of it I paint the flying dragon. It's not that I'm scanning the dragon and the dragon, real-time dragon is generated, and then all the kinematics are there, ready, and then the dragon starts flying. No, it's simply that the machine recognizes that pattern, and the feeling you get is that they are scanning the dragon at the very moment. It's a lie, of course, it's a trick, but I think that it's something quite powerful, the fact that you don't need more than a pattern for this type of scenes. I think it's quite interesting. And then the content you want to add to that could be anything. I don't know if I'm making myself clear. I have the feeling I did not make myself very clear. But of course, that's what's nice about it. The little toy is sold, and I sold the whole package with a subscription or whatever, and the little toy. It's like the Invisimals with the cards. It's not something that you would do in 2D, but rather in 3D. So the little toy and so on. And I aim at this. I identify the little toy. I can identify the 4 sides or just the front. I place one here and one there. I take a flash, a little bit, a few particles, so on and so forth, and then the little toy is flying. The feeling you have is amazing. Of course you're being tricked. But what you do in plays, in games, of course you're being fooled all the time. That's what gaming is all about. Fooling the person who's playing, fooling the player. So when I aim at the little toy, if you do the tracking, if you know the size of the little toy and you can map things in the same position as the toy, and if you can have a few particles coming out, and then you say, hey, there's my little toy, and then that's fantastic, isn't it? You'll buy into that. Further comments? Well, that's about it. Thank you very much. If you have further questions, please, there's time for that. If not, we will take a short break now. Have a drink. At least I will have a little drink of water. and then we will continue with the workshop later on after the break. I don't know if you brought your cameras with you. Did you? Did you bring your webcams? You were asked to bring a webcam because otherwise we will not be able to do much. Okay.